Hi, welcome to our channel True Up. I have discovered from a number of media reports that the United States intends to intensify its penalties against Chinese chips. It involves several important chip manufacturing equipment and supplies, as well as regulations that apply not only to Chinese enterprises, but also to global manufacturers with plants in China, which has piqued the industry's interest. The possible ban, which is still in its early stages and might take months to implement, would broaden an existing prohibition on U.S. businesses providing such equipment to China's top chipmaker, International Semiconductor Manufacturing. Chinese semiconductor firms such as Huahong Semiconductor, Changxin Storage, and Yangtze River Storage are anticipated to face restrictions. As far as I know, prior to this, the U.S. imposed numerous rounds of penalties on Huawei, resulting in Huawei's inability to procure semiconductors and a drop in Huawei's 5G mobile phone market share. This action has an impact not just on Huawei's business development, but also on the worldwide development of 5G technology. So, how would the new U.S. embargo influence Chinese semiconductor makers' development? What should China do? The United States is developing a semiconductor ban on China in order to stifle China's semiconductor growth. According to the information, the U.S. Department of Commerce is engaging relevant U.S. corporations for input, and the ban may be drafted within a few months. The prohibition prohibits U.S. raw material and equipment providers from supplying Chinese enterprises, and it specifically targets Chinese semiconductor companies such as Huahong Semiconductor, Changxin Storage, and Yangtze Memory. At the same time, foreign firms with factories in mainland China may suffer as a result of this move. At the same time, the U.S. may push semiconductor equipment producers such as Japan and the Netherlands to enact similar measures to prevent Chinese firms from purchasing equipment from other nations. According to the article, South Korean SK Hynix, Germany's Infineon, the Netherlands NXP Semiconductors, and the United States Texas Instruments, among others, would face the same export control restrictions as Chinese businesses. These foreign firms, as we all know, have played an important part in the worldwide automotive general semiconductor supply system. According to the media, the U.S. Department of Commerce plans to create a set of restrictions similar to those that apply to SMIC in order to limit other semiconductor businesses. It is intended to let these enterprises to continue producing large-scale, traditional chips while carefully restricting their access to modern processes and equipment possibilities. A representative for the Commerce Department said the department was unable to comment at this time on whether a ban was already planned, but that regulations in semiconductor technology were continually being evaluated. Simultaneously, the U.S. government is debating a proposal with a budget of $52 billion, about 348.3 billion yuan, which involves encouraging semiconductor giants to create plants in the U.S. The most absurd aspect is that international chip manufacturers with plants in China are also sanctioned. Chip makers from other nations that set up plants in China, in addition to Chinese enterprises, may be affected. According to the study, chip makers such as Infineon, NXP, SK Hynix, and Texas Instruments operate plants in China and may face the same export regulations as Chinese businesses. According to the article, the new prohibition would prevent American raw material suppliers from supplying Chinese firms, and companies like as Applied Materials, Lam Research, and KLA Corporation are expected to suffer considerably as a result. The three firms' sales in China will reach $14.5 billion, approximately 97.1 billion yuan, in 2021, accounting for one-third of total revenue. In reaction to the aforementioned report, a spokeswoman for the United States Commerce Department stated that the department was unable to comment on whether the ban was previously planned, and that the Commerce Department will continually assess the regulatory mechanisms for semiconductor technology. What will happen if the United States imposes sanctions on China? According to relevant specialists, if the ban is enacted, it would have a major impact on the global semiconductor sector, with the impact on the local vehicle industry being especially clear, which will initially be reflected in the supply of general-purpose chips. If there are no unpredictable elements like the plague or the confrontation between Russia and Ukraine, the chip scarcity should be alleviated next year, but there is no indication of a short-term improvement right now. Ordinary chips are currently in short supply, according to the supply chain. If the United States bans equipment imports further, manufacturing capacity will be severely constrained. Chinese firms must employ two methods: one is to continue with old mature processes, and the other is to launch domestic equipment on a broad scale as much as possible to increase domestic equipment availability, and first overcome the 0 to 1 problem. Except for high-end storage and AI processors, most automotive chips are 40 nanometers and suitable for automotive application. The key to automotive-grade chips is not the sophisticated nature of the technology, but rather stability and dependability. Chinese businesses must establish a full-chain production system. It is vital to determine whether or not this system can be implemented. Advanced process chips, such as Qualcomm 8155 processors for smart cockpits and NVIDIA Orange chips for assisted driving, might also have an influence. According to experts, these advanced process chips are not manufactured in China, and the items themselves will not be harmed by the embargo. However, due to the general environment's effect, there may be insufficient production capacity, as well as an insufficient allocation of the Chinese market in the worldwide quota. The United States intends to tighten restrictions against Chinese semiconductors, and local chips must speed up the layout. It is a significant year for the development of smart electric cars in China in 2022. On the one hand, the City Pilot Assistance L3 will achieve a thorough breakthrough through the promotion of numerous brands. On the other hand, the higher-level robotaxi L4-L5 will accomplish a comprehensive breakthrough. The experimental operation is now taking place in Beijing, Shanghai, Hangzhou, and other cities. Simultaneously, sales of electric cars maintained a stable and quick growth momentum, and even in April, when the pandemic was at its peak, it continued to significantly raise the overall market penetration rate. Today, China not only outperforms the United States in terms of electric car production, sales, and application, but also in influencing future driverless technology research and commercialization. If the U.S. Department of Commerce prohibition is enacted, it will be devastating to the worldwide semiconductor sector, with the impact on the car industry being especially severe. Self-manufacturing chips is not a pipe dream for local chip businesses, but it is getting increasingly challenging to produce sophisticated process chips. For example, SMIC, which has been impacted by the U.S. prohibition, is unable to ramp up manufacturing of its 14 nanometers process chips. SMIC invested $8 billion last autumn to introduce a new 28 nanometers production line to increase production capacity. Domestic chip producers may face SMIC if chip production equipment and raw materials cannot be imported. This will be a significant setback for the whole domestic semiconductor sector. If China wishes to resuscitate domestic chip production, it should also rely on modern chip manufacturing equipment or technology from nations such as the Netherlands, the United States, and Japan, in my opinion. Furthermore, since governments in numerous countries have recognized the importance of chip manufacturing and equipment-related technologies in recent years, the process of obtaining equipment or technology, including mergers and acquisitions, has become increasingly complicated. Chips are China's biggest vulnerability. The first approach, in my opinion, is to promote chip localization and lessen reliance on foreign chip supply chains. At the same time, if the U.S. imposes broad sanctions, it will undoubtedly harm itself. Do you believe the U.S. sanctions against China's semiconductor industry are ridiculous? Thanks for watching our video. We would appreciate it if you subscribed our channel and gave us a thumb. See you.